Comments on Jake Paul hit especially hard. Dana's made it clear that he sees Jake Paul as a cheater who's built his career more on hype than actual skill. According to Dana, Jake's entire game plan from day one has been about maximizing fame and money, not proving himself as a legitimate fighter. And Dana points out that Jake isn't attracting fans because they think he's a great boxer. They're tuning in, hoping to see him get knocked out.
That you're a cheater.
Jake needs Tyson and needs all these other people because everybody's going to tune in to hope that Mike Tyson knocks him out.
Right.
They're not tuning in because they think Jake Paul's a great fighter and they want to see him compete.
In Dana's words, people are watching for Mike Tyson, not for Jake Paul. He believes Jake needs names like Tyson to draw interest, implying that without these legends, Jake's appeal would fizzle out fast. Dana goes beyond just calling Jake a fame seeker. He outright questions the authenticity of Jake's boxing career. He's taken aim at Jake's carefully selected lineup of opponents, often older or smaller fighters who are retired or no longer at their peak. According to Dana, Jake is more focused on flashy promos, viral content, and over-the-top face-off moments than on becoming a true contender in boxing.
You think that you can do it better than we do. We're doing this whole thing wrong. You could treat the fighters better than we do. Knock yourself out. Go start your own business. It's easy to do. Get the Warlock on it. The Warlock can get it started for you. What you and the Warlock should be focused on is your business.
Dana even throws shade at Jake's manager, sarcastically calling him the Warlock, and hints at some shady business practices behind the scenes.
And that thing that you came out with today, I don't use cocaine. Do you use steroids? Jake, you never responded to the challenge. You publicly stated that I use cocaine. I do not. So I told you, you could randomly cocaine test me for the next 10 years. I believe that you're a cheater, and I believe that you use steroids. So I want to randomly steroid test you.
Dana's pointed critique here isn't just about Jake as a fighter, but about the business model he's built around himself. Dana believes that Jake's persona is more of a social media circus than a real career in combat sports. One of the biggest shocks in Dana's takedown of Jake Paul was his accusation that Jake is using performance-enhancing drugs. Dana didn't mince words here, flat out accusing Jake of being on steroids. And in true Dana White fashion, he didn't stop at just calling Jake out. Dana proposed a challenge. He's willing to undergo random cocaine testing for 10 years if Jake agrees to random steroid testing. This bold challenge took the feud to a whole new level, as it's not just about words now. It's a direct confrontation, with both men offering to put their reputations on the line. This steroid vs. cocaine challenge quickly blew up on social media, sparking countless debates and memes. The question is, will Jake take the bait, or will he stay silent? Either way, Dana's challenge has certainly put Jake in a tight spot, with many fans now questioning just how clean Jake's rise in boxing has been. Another point of contention is Jake Paul's outspoken stance on fighter pay. He's been calling out Dana and the UFC for underpaying fighters, positioning himself as a kind of fighters' rights advocate.
Do you think he's not paying fighters fairly?
It's all greed and it's all going to Phil Danwitz's pocket.
According to Jake, top-tier UFC heavyweights are making around $600,000 per fight, while boxing champs can pull in as much as $30 million. Jake's narrative here is that the UFC is exploiting fighters, and he's made it his mission to expose that. But Dana isn't buying it. He sees Jake's crusade as pure PR, a way to boost his own brand while pretending to care about fighters. Dana challenges Jake to put his money where his mouth is, suggesting that if Jake really thinks he's so savvy, he should start his own MMA organization and show everyone how it's done. It's classic Dana White, direct, sarcastic, and designed to hit where it hurts. Now let's get to the fight that sparked this entire debate. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Fans are torn on this matchup. On one side, we have Jake, a fighter who's known for taking on retired or less physically imposing opponents. On the other, we have Mike Tyson, a boxing legend and former heavyweight champion. But Tyson is nearly 60, and while he's still in great shape for his age, he's not the unstoppable force he was in his prime.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Fuck with me, right? Let's do this. Chris, I got a lot in me.
People are out there saying we think Mike's too old for this fight. Tell them what you think about that. If you think I'm too old for this fight, you need to come tell me in my face. Whoa.
Critics, including former champions like Bernard Hopkins, have called out the absurdity of this matchup, arguing that it's more of a circus act than a legitimate sporting event. Hopkins went so far as to say that Tyson and Jake Paul shouldn't even be in the same conversation, and he's not alone in that sentiment. Many fans see this as just another way for Jake to use a big name to boost his own brand, rather than a real test of his boxing skills. Jake's entire career has been built around polarizing fights, social media buzz, and his carefully curated public image. But a fight with Mike Tyson would be a massive risk for him, especially if things don't go his way. If Tyson lands one of his famous punches, Jake could face serious damage, not just physically, but to his credibility as a boxer. This match could either make or break his career, depending on the outcome. Brendan Schaub, former UFC fighter, broke down the possible scenarios. If Jake wins, fans will call him a bully for beating up a much older man. But if he loses, it could spell the end of his credibility as a serious contender in boxing. And the worst-case scenario? A slow, dull decision win for either side that leaves fans underwhelmed and disappointed. It's important to understand why Dana's words carry so much weight in the fight world. This is the man who transformed the UFC from a fringe, controversial event into a multi-billion-dollar global powerhouse.
I started to take jiu-jitsu with my friends, the Fertitta brothers. They own Station Casinos here in Vegas. And through that, we fell in love with the sport, and we started to meet a lot of the athletes. And I started to manage Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. Yeah. I got into a contract dispute with the old owner of the UFC. His name is Bob Meyerowitz out of New York. And he flipped out on me one day and said, you know what? There is no more money left. We might not have enough money to do the next event. So I was like, we hung up the phone. I was like, oh, shit. So I literally hung up and called the Fertittas and said, I think the UFC is going out of business. I think we could buy it, and I think we should. So wow. Lorenzo went into negotiations with Meyerowitz, and a couple months later, we owned the UFC for $2 million.
God damn. How many? $2 million?
$2 million.
What are they worth now? You guys, how much?
Well, we sold it back in 2016 for $4.25 billion, and now it's worth 12.
He spent years building the UFC brand, working with some of the most respected fighters in history, like Khabib Nurmagomedov and Anderson Silva. So when Dana speaks out against Jake Paul, he's not just taking shots at a YouTube star turned boxer. He's defending the legacy of the sport he's dedicated his life to building. Dana sees Jake's approach as a cheapening of combat sports, turning it into a spectacle for clicks and cash rather than a display of true skill and grit. For Dana, it's not just personal, it's about preserving the integrity of the fight world. Jake Paul's rise in combat sports has been nothing short of fascinating. He's taken a different path, leveraging his massive social media following to stage high-profile fights and earn impressive paychecks. Jake's model is one where entertainment value often takes precedence over legitimate competition. And while it's working for him financially, it's also drawn criticism from purists who feel he's exploiting the sport. As Jake continues to rack up millions from fights, he's challenging the traditional model of combat sports promotion. Some argue that he's innovating, bringing new eyes to boxing, while others see him as undermining the sport's core values. Regardless of where you stand, there's no denying that Jake Paul has changed the conversation around combat sports and what it means to be a fighter. With all the controversy surrounding the Jake Paul fight, the question remains, will this fight actually happen? There are logistical challenges, questions about Tyson's age, and concerns about the legitimacy of the matchup.
He was also considered a boxer, and he lost. So if you can keep fighting fucking 50-something-year-olds...
You don't think Tyson has a chance?
And making a living at it. I think that Mike Tyson has a puncher's chance against anybody.
This isn't just about Jake and Tyson. It's a clash of old-school combat sports values versus new-age entertainment, tradition versus innovation, grit versus glamour. It's the kind of story that has captivated the sports world and could redefine what fans expect from combat sports.